Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Victoria. It's lovely to have you here with us today. And if you're joining us for the first time on recording, then I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Carrie Hunter, and I am the Spiritual Director of the Center for Spiritual Living, Victoria. Typically, we meet downtown on Cook Street in a wonderful location there, but of course, we're still under lockdown, and we're hoping that's going to lift very soon so that we can all be together again and just enjoy this wonderful community of which we're a part. So I'd like to open this morning by inviting Reverend Jennifer Tennant to do our opening treatment. Jennifer?
Thank you, Reverend Carrie. As I open to this holy moment of now, I know that there is only one divine presence. That divine presence that is everywhere. It's within me, it's within you, it's within everything we experience. And as we seek it out and open to the experience of the divine presence, transform our world from appearances of negativity into the truth of being, which is peace, harmony, abundance, joy, love, all with gratitude. This presence is within everyone, and nobody is left out. All appearances are just that, appearances. The truth is, everyone is an aspect of the divine presence. And in that divine presence, disharmony and negativity cannot exist. It's not supported by divine consciousness, therefore it cannot survive. And as we understand that, I open to embrace the flow of grace, which we experience as harmony, love, peace, divine right order, most of all, love. As we go about our day, I practice the presence. Whatever I observe, I remember the name of the divine. I am that. I am. Nothing is outside of ourselves. Everything is part of who we are. And we return to that understanding. I am that. I am. And with divine gratitude, I share this truth and invite everyone to use it as their own. Because in truth, it is their own. Divine being, part of the omnipresence. Joy and gratitude, I give thanks. And I release all attachments to allow the presence of God to flow as the will of the divine desires. I am so grateful. Thank you, God. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you so much, Reverend Jennifer. And it's my pleasure to invite Darlene Haynes to bless us with a gift of music this morning.
Thank you, Carrie. So this song, I'd like you to join me from at home there and sing along to the song called God is My Source by Karen Drucker. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. Love is my source, love is my power, love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, love gives me everything I need. Peace is my source, peace is my power, peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, peace gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need.
Thank you so much, Darlene. I
You're welcome.
apologize for that. My screen froze for a moment. Seems to happen these days. Thank you for that lovely reminder. God is our source, God is our power. And this morning I'm going to talk about harnessing that power, harnessing your power, because it is there within each and every one of us. And as I was thinking about this week, I was thinking about a memory of childhood because I was watching a movie which took place a couple of hundred years ago, and there were people at a well who were drawing water, and it was the old bucket, with the rope that went down, and they were pulling the bucket up afterward, or on a pulley, I guess, of some kind. But it just took me right back to childhood. And I don't know if I've shared this story or not before, but when I was very young, my grandparents lived just outside of Calgary on an acreage, a very small acreage. And I used to spend a lot of time with them up until I was 5 when they moved to British Columbia. But it was always a source of great wonder for me because they were so filled with joy for everything around them. And one of the things that I really remember is that old water pump, but I remember so much more. I remember walking through beautiful grassy fields and picking wild blueberries and gooseberries. They had gooseberry bushes, and I wasn't crazy about gooseberries when I was a kid. But one of my fondest memories was my grandmother actually picking me up out of bed at night when I was fast asleep, waking me up, which no one ever did before that, and taking me outside in the dark to the gooseberry bushes. And she had a flashlight. She parted the bushes and revealed to me this bird's nest with these little baby birds with their beaks wide open, waiting for their mom to come and to give them some food. And it's always a memory that I treasure, that someone would want to share that with me when I was just such a tiny little thing and would actually wake me up to do it. So there were all kinds of wonderful, magical things, and not so magical around that place. There was an outhouse, didn't find that too magical. Um, and there was a root cellar, and there were mouse traps, and there were mice. All of the things of nature that were around that were quite extraordinary. But it was the pump that always really fascinated me because I would be there with my grandmother. She'd be pumping water, and uh, and I would always be filled with questions like, well, how deep is that well, and where does the water come from? Anyway, like, is there water everywhere underground? And she would patiently explain to me as much as she could. And I remember many times being with her where she'd be pumping, and all of a sudden there'd be nothing. There'd be no water. There'd just be the sound of air. And then she would patiently pick up a container of water and pour it in the pump. And she said that's called priming the pump. And that kept the water flowing. And I didn't understand the technology of that at the time. But the memory is still there. And I've always thought that that's such a wonderful metaphor for spirit. When when we're deeply connected, deeply connected, that it's always flowing. We're always in that flow. And there's an inner power that is deep within us. And it's the well of spirit, God, creator, intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And as we connect with the divine through prayer and meditation, we keep the pump primed, and it's easy to draw strength and wisdom from the inner guide, which I call the waters of God. Neville Goddard, who was an amazing metaphysician. Some say one of the greatest who ever lived and who ever wrote, said that we are the hearts and minds of divine expression. And so thinking about that, the hearts and minds of divine expression, we sometimes pop in and out of that divine expression. It seems to be, well, it is human nature to do that. We're not constantly conscious of the God stuff that we are, of spirit within, of the source that is within each of us. And of course, when we're not conscious of it, we're blocking that flow. We're not in that divine flow of life, which is, the water metaphor continues here. And so we need to understand that we need to maintain that connection, and to maintain that connection, there's something that we have to practice to do that. We don't just stay constantly connected. And I was reading something the other day, which, touched me in the same way, that basically was, when we are constantly in spiritual practice, by that I mean daily in spiritual practice, where we do our meditation, where we do our prayers, whatever your practice might be, could be listening to incredible music and just going deep within, or it might be just sitting in total silence and just feeling the presence, because the more that we do that, the greater the feeling becomes after a period of time. Whatever it is that our practice happens to be, when we are doing that, we can easily tap into the presence in our lives. If there's something going on that we don't like, or if we need to bring some stillness into our lives all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it's very easy to tap into that, and to just sit in the presence, to feel it, to know that it is there, to know that everything is okay, basically to turn everything over to God in that moment if we need to do so. And if we aren't practicing it all the time, that's when we get into worry mode, um, you know, uh, fussing about whatever might be going on in our lives, or what somebody just said, or what someone just did, or what we feel isn't working in our lives. And so I call this spiritual practice, well, to me, it's like priming the pump. When we're children, we can be so passionate about everything. We believe that we can do anything. How many times do you hear little kids say, well, when I grow up, I'm going to be a fireman, or I'm going to be an astronaut, or I'm going to be a movie star. There's total confidence in that kind of thing. And then as they get a little bit older, they learn skepticism and they learn cynicism. Maybe not just a little bit older, it might be a lot older before that really, really kicks in. But it blocks the flow in our lives when we go into those negative places. It blocks that burning within, that inner desire, that fire in the belly, as Sam Keen called it. We're born with that. If you remember yourself as a little child, you remember those feelings of all that you can do, superhuman powers. How many little kids do you see just practicing that, and they're right in the moment and they're really feeling it? Then we get to a point where it's just kind of, oh, well, life doesn't always work that way. Life doesn't give us what we want. Life doesn't give us what we need. We go through a whole litany of things in our heads, or some of us do. And so it's a matter of getting back into that presence, and being in that presence as much as we can be, and especially practicing, popping in and just saying, hi God, here I am. I can feel you with me. Just doing a check-in. It's kind of a fun thing to do. But also, when we have these blips in possibility, in the feelings of what we can possibly do. And then comes along a book or a teacher, or a friend, someone who starts to talk to us about our spirituality, and and has some concepts, and we say, oh, I already know that stuff. I've been studying that stuff most of my life. I already know it. And I was thinking, I think it was Michael Beckwith who said, I already know that are the most dangerous words in the English language. The thing is that we already know lots about a lot of things, but we can always know a lot more. We can always go deeper than that. And so when we say, I know that already, again, we're cutting off the flow. It's just something that stops us right then and there, keeps us from going forward. And I thought, how terrible it would be if people who had grand ideas and who invented amazing things were just shut off, or shut themselves off and never ever went on to accomplish the things that they did. I don't know if any of you saw it the other night, but I was watching something about the development of the COVID vaccines. And no matter what anybody thinks about it, what was really fascinating to me is there's a woman named Kizzy Colbert, 35 years old, African American, who led the team that created the Moderna vaccine. And what she said was that she'd been working on this for years. She and others, and other scientists, had been working on plant-based vaccines. Moderna and Pfizer are plant-based vaccines, and she said she'd been working on this in a number of different kinds of therapies, but it hadn't really been applied to a vaccine before. But the mRNA that is used in those vaccines, um, it has been used in cancer treatment since 2013, has been used very successfully in cancer treatment. And so it's nothing new. And she said, when we've been criticized for turning something out on the market after only 5 months, she said, it isn't 5 months at all. It's been years of experimentation and years before we actually, came up with a process that we could use and are using in vaccines now. And I didn't know any of that, but I was fascinated that this young woman had taken this. I want to say technology, but it's not technology. Had taken this idea and had put it to good use. And so often we hear these things in science that a scientist has been going one direction with something for a long time and just kind of slugging it out and trying to figure out how to do something that is in their minds. And all of a sudden they come to a halt, and they go into a stillness and think, there's something that I'm not getting here. And they'll sit with it for a while, and then comes this new concept that they might do a 180 on it. And all of a sudden, whatever it is they're working on comes through to fruition. It's not just with science. Well, I suppose everything is, depending upon how we look at it. But look at the Wright brothers, and when they were convinced that they could fly, and the many times that they experimented with flight before they actually did succeed. You can apply it to cooking. You might try a recipe of your own over and over and over again, something that you've invented, until you finally get it right. But it takes inspiration to do that kind of thing. And so what we should avoid, if we can, is avoid saying, I already know that. Because there's always something more to learn. There's always something more to work with. And the way that we learn that is by going into the stillness. Still my mind. A beautiful song, still my mind. Be at peace. It's a place where everything can be revealed to us. Because when we're just living an external life, and by that I mean externally not feeling connected to the divine, then we are constantly thinking about so many things. I remember reading Pam Grout's book, E Squared, many years ago, and she said, we have on average 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000 thoughts a day. And she said, probably only a few of them are of any importance. And the next day we'll get up and have another 60,000 thoughts, and a lot of them will be the same as the ones the day before. And Ernest Holmes said that our thoughts are actually prayers. So when we think about that, there are a lot of thoughts that we have that don't feel very prayer-like to us. But basically, we know that our thoughts do create. And so the thoughts that are so repetitious, whether they're good or they're bad, are in the process of creation. If we're repeating them over and over again, and if we really believe them. So we really need to be priming our pumps with God, priming our pumps with that inspiration, knowing that there is a better way to do a lot of things, and knowing that we have the power ourselves to create in our lives, and we can harness that power. We can harness it for good. First of all, we need to be prepared to accept the knowledge of what's going to reveal to us our greatest good. And this is about preparing our minds. It's not about our physical selves. It's about being still in mind and separate from all the noise and distraction and worry. As I said earlier, be still and know that I am God. To be ready is to be still and to know. And it's about releasing the worry that consumes one's energy. Think about that when you're worrying about things, how it just drains your energy. It can be exhausting. And so as we release our worry, things get easier for us, but that's not always the easiest thing to do. And yet, it's something we really need to call upon God and just turn it over. And I was thinking about a biblical story in 2 Corinthians. I always think of 2 Corinthians as being St. Paul's message of love, but there's a story in 2 Corinthians about King Jehoshaphat, and the head of his army comes to him and says that they are going to be attacked, that there's a great army that is gathering outside, fairly far outside their gates. And the head of his army said, we must go and attack first. We have to launch a surprise attack on them so that they don't attack us. And King Jehoshaphat said, let me go away and think about that. I really need to think about that for a while. And so he sat in stillness, communing with God, and came to the conclusion that they were not going to attack, and if attacked, they were not going to fight, which is rather a strange notion. And so he called in the head of his army and he told him that. He said, we won't fight under any circumstance. He said, God told him that this is not our battle to fight. And so he just said, we give it over to God. And so when the attack was about to happen, instead, he and the army went forth singing, just singing. And the forces that were about to attack just stopped. And there was no war of any kind. And to me, this really, again, is a metaphor. It's a metaphor about when we feel under attack, what do we want to do? There's a tendency to want revenge. I want to get even with that person, or I want to be right. At any cost, I want to prove that I'm right. Instead, basically, this is a metaphor for sitting in the stillness, for listening to the divine. What is it that God has to tell me about this? What is it that I need to know? What's the greater knowledge here, apart from what's been dealt to me today? What is the greater knowledge? And what is mine to do? Am I to go forth singing? Or am I to sit in stillness for a longer period of time? Is it up to me to forgive? We will get the message about what it is that we're to do, but that's if we maintain our connection, if we don't just pop in and out of it. Well, today I'll do a little bit of prayer and meditation, and maybe next week I'll do some, or maybe next month, or for sure when I have a problem, a really serious thing happening, boy, I'll pray then, because I know that prayer works, or I hope it does. The way that we get into that total knowledge is through the practice. It's like learning to play the piano. You don't sit down and immediately play a concerto. It takes practice, lots of practice. And the thing is that after we practice for only a few weeks, every day, it becomes second nature, and we more easily sink into that God space, as I call it, where we feel the presence within. It may be different for each of us, but for me, it's just this wonderful warmth in my heart center that I feel, and I know that I am completely connected at that moment. But when I get fussing about something or worrying about something, like technology this morning, then I feel myself slipping out of that. It's like, no, breathe, breathe, go back into it again, and we have to think about what we're going to do with this. So often we'll go through a day worrying about something, or thinking about something that someone has said to us or that we feel they've done to us, and we'll carry that into our bed at night, and we'll carry it into our sleep. And of course, Dr. Holmes says, don't carry it into your sleep. At that moment when you're putting your head down on your pillow, surrender, give everything to God. Just say, God, take this from me. Grant me peace. Grant me stillness. And so when we think about what our desires might be, the things that we really want in our lives, which are the thoughts that are consistently good in our lives, out of the 60,000 thoughts that are going on, one of the things that we have to remember is, again, something else from Scripture, and that's ask and ye shall receive. Now, that quote has received a bad rap through the years, and I've been one to have given it a bad rap, because to me it's about asking for stuff. It's about immersing oneself in the law of attraction over and over and over again to accumulate stuff, rather than to be in consciousness, which is really, for me, where I want to be, because when we're in consciousness, all of our needs are met. And so the thing is that there's the Aramaic translation for the word ask is actually claim. Think about that. There's a big difference between asking and claiming, or begging and claiming, or bartering and claiming, or beseeching and claiming. When you claim something, you know that it's yours. And the example, of course, that I use for that is, you go to a wonderful restaurant for dinner, and it's a very fancy place, and you get to check your coat, your umbrella if you need to, and you're given a claim check. And so you go in and you have your dinner, and you never for a moment doubt that you're going to get your coat back. You have this claim check. And so when you're leaving the restaurant, you present the claim check and you get your coat back. You know it. You've claimed it. Same thing really when you order your dinner, maybe not claiming it in a conscious way, but when you order from the menu, if you order a salad and you order, salmon dinner as an entree, you know that that's what's going to come to the table. Unless the waiter has made a mistake, and is giving you somebody else's order, but the chances are pretty good all the time you're going to get what it was that you ordered. And so this claiming is that certainty about things. And that's fairly easy to do under those circumstances. The place where it gets a little bit complicated is in the things in our lives that are really important to us, and where we have self-doubt. For example, if you have a new job and you're going in your first day on the new job, and you're thinking, well, I wonder if people are going to like me. I wonder if the boss will like me. I wonder if I can really do this job effectively. Will I be good at it? Will I be able to do the job that they want me to do? Am I going to last here for a long time? Am I going to love this job, or am I not? All of these, conflicting thoughts that can go through our heads. We're not claiming our good. We're not just absolutely knowing that we're in the right place at the right time, the right person with the right job for us at that time, and that we're going to do well. We're going to do our very best at what we do, and be confident about that. And another example might be relationship. So you have a brand new date, first date, and you go out for dinner and you order dinner and you're a little bit nervous. And before you've had your first bite of salad, you're sitting there thinking, gee, I wonder if he really likes me. Um, I wonder if he likes the way I look. I wonder if my hair is okay. I wonder if my makeup is okay. I wonder if we're going to have a good conversation. I mean, we can go through all of the wondering things. When we're doing that kind of thing, we're not in the alignment of claiming or knowing. And so if we start to think about claiming our good, not asking for it, but claiming it, that's a very powerful, powerful thing to do. Just knowing that we are supported in every way because God is everywhere in everyone and everything, and certainly in us. And so harness that power. I mean, how can we deny God? How can we deny that somebody is not going to like an expression of God, or that this expression of God cannot do things properly? The thing is, we can do so much more than we ever thought that we could do. There's this nagging voice that comes through so often that says, well, I've kind of, maybe I've asked for too much. You know, I've really asked for a lot. You know, uh, what should I do about this? But yeah, really, do I really deserve this? Basically, bottom line is, do we really deserve this? And the thing is, how can we say that an expression of God does not deserve the highest and best that there is in this universe? We all, we all deserve the highest and best. And so we can give up the negative stuff. Just turn it over to God and know that we can claim whatever it is that is for our highest and best and for the highest and best in this world, instead of sending out a worried vibe about everything, sending out a vibration of competence and of creativity and of love. And just know that every single day we have the chance to put those prayers in action, one at a time. Don't have to do 60,000 at a time. Let's choose what's important to us and let's focus on what is important and let the others go. The things that are of no importance, that are cluttering up our minds all the time. I know that I slip in and out of that cluttered mind phase. Get really busy and start fussing about how busy I am, or worrying about how busy I am, or will I ever get this done? Will I ever get something else done? Instead of just going with the divine flow, priming my pump, priming it with God, priming it with the total knowledge that I am capable and that I have the time and I have the energy and I have all of the resources and all of the support that I need in my life to do whatever it is that I want to do. Let us get our passion back. Let us feel that fire in our bellies. There's more to do. There's always more that we can do. There's always more that we can know. Do we want to? Do we want to know more? Do we want to accomplish more? Or do we just want to give it up now and say, oh, well, I've done enough in this lifetime. I think I'll just sit back and, watch the clouds go by. There's maybe nothing wrong with that either. It's a choice. But we are told so often that we're not living up to our full potential, that everything is possible. And at some point along the way, we might have given up. So we can choose one way or another. We can choose that, okay, done enough this time around. I'm just going to sit back now and smell the flowers. Or ask ourselves, is there still something left to do? Is there still something left that God brought me here to do? And maybe that's the best time to just go into the stillness, to just sit in the silence, to kind of empty the mind as much as possible, and to listen. Just listen. And it doesn't necessarily come in a voice. It may come in a feeling. It may not come right in that moment, but it will come. It might be the next day. Someone might say something to you that all of a sudden awakens that within you again and say, oh, Yeah, I could feel some passion around that. I'd like to get involved in that. Different things at different stages of our lives. But let us claim them and not be begging for things. Let us know that whatever it is we claim is possible as long as we are primed with God, as long as we're aware of that, as long as we stay in that place. And when we do, when we're in that deepest part of ourselves, the well of God, we're in that place where we can harness that power. We're in a place where dreams can come true. We're in a place of true intelligence and unlimited power and unconditional love. That's when we really, truly are harnessing our highest and best good. Let's do it. And so it is. And so I thank you for being here with us today. It's so wonderful to see your faces on screen. I miss you all. And it's just such a lovely feeling to be able to chat with you before the service and after the service. And this is the time that we typically take an offering. And so if you're moved to do so today, please send an offering to donate@cslvictoria.org. And that will go directly into, it will either go directly into our bank account or it will require a password. And if it asks you for the password, we ask you all to use the same one, which is abundance. And then it will go straight through to our bank if that should happen. And we also, of course, have access to PayPal on our website at cslvictoria.org. We're so grateful for your contributions. They are covering some of our expenses now as we are still away from our physical center. We're looking forward to being back and having everything back to normal again. Let it be a good normal that we're going back to. So I just thank you and I bless you, and I'd like to invite Reverend Joanna today to do our closing benediction.
Thank you, Reverend Carrie. So on this beautiful May morning, as we go forward into a beautiful week of springtime, let us know that we are priming the pump of spirit in our hearts, that we are each day developing a deeper and deeper appreciation of spirit working in every aspect of our lives, in our relationships, in all our endeavors, whether they be artistic or academic or intellectual or creative, or whether they be simply weeding our gardens. Let us know that spirit is always and everywhere present, available to each one of us. That as we know this truth and practice it, we know our greatest good unfolds easily and naturally in our lives. I give thanks for the power of this teaching. I give thanks for this congregation, for Reverend Carrie, Reverend Rachel, Reverend Jennifer, and Lesia. I give thanks for the power of prayer. I release my word to spirit, to the law, knowing it is so, and so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Joanna. And so it is. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you next time.